Healing and recovering your sex life after childhood sexual abuse is not just a journey, it is also a skill building experience. And one of the skills that I had most underdeveloped, directly impacting my sex life, was sexual self advocacy. Now, self advocacy in and of itself is a skill that many of us as survivors, we invest in and we put our time and effort in strengthening in other areas of our lives. So it doesn't surprise me either that when it comes to our sex life and advocacy in our sex life, that it falls by the wayside. Even though our sexual health and well-being is a cornerstone of our overall well-being and health. And there's many reasons for that. It can be the shame that one is still living with despite even going to therapy. It also doesn't help that some of us have had very little, poor, or no modeling about how to go about taking the step of actually healing our sex lives, and many other reasons why that I can't and won't mention here. So, sexual self advocacy is one of the skills that is foundational, in my opinion. Sexual self advocacy requires us to dive deep into our communication, our sexual communication, if you will, expressing our needs, our wants, our yeses, our nos, our maybe so's to our partners. But most importantly, it requires us to understand our bodies, understand our relationships, and where do we stand today, here and now, with our harm. And that also requires us to understand interoception, listening to our internal sensations and messages. One of the things that sexual self-advocacy requires of us in order for us to properly advocate in these intimate experiences. And then a little further than those very practical skills, those very somatic based skills, it also implores us to, as adults who experience childhood sexual abuse, at least in my opinion, as someone who I had to take sexual self-advocacy under my terms, because when I was going through my healing journey, and that's not to say that I'm not still on one, but it's definitely not what it was 14 years ago, was that I had to also have a holistic view and understanding of the long-term impacts of childhood sexual abuse. So that meant that I had to understand the long-term impacts of this, the holistic impacts. I also had to understand brain function, nervous system function, all of these important pieces that I needed so that I could understand how this is impacting me and have language, not just for another person, but first and foremost for myself. Sexual self-advocacy starts with ourselves. It tells us to interrogate ourselves first so that we can then advocate and express to others where we are and what we need. And if you want to invest in strengthening your sexual self-advocacy skills, I invite you to consider having one-on-one support with myself. My name is Betsy Perez, and I hope that you are well, and I hope that you have a beautiful day or evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Much love.